Alright, so I'm going to talk about jumpstart servers this video. Now obviously the only thing I have to go off of is the roadmap, so this is going to be a lot of thoughts, a lot of speculation. This is just something I've been thinking about. When I first saw the roadmap, I was like, oh, this is kind of whack, who really cares about this? And then the more I thought about it, the more I heard about it, the more I talked about it. It was kind of like that Vince McMahon meme where he's just getting hype and hype. But then as I've gotten past that point, I'm kind of going back down the totem pole into I'm not too sure. So after a lot of deep thought, I want to talk about the things that I think could be good about it, things that could be bad about it, and that's really about it. So as they state in the roadmap and in the YouTube video, they're trying to do it to lessen gatekeeping. They also mentioned that you'll give a path to jumpstart a character to 14, 15, and then go from there. But there's a lot of questions that need to be answered on how this works to really assess how this is going to go. One of the big questions I have, one of the things I think about is how do characters get on it? How do they get off of it? So can you only create one? Can you transfer onto it? If you can transfer onto it, I assume you can't bring any items because it is a separate economy. So if you could transfer onto it with a bunch of relics, you're absolutely going to just destroy that market. So the question is, how do you get a character off that server? Because I assume you wouldn't want to keep characters always on it. My assumption is that there's an item level cutoff, because I would assume I'd be able to transfer my character over to my main server because I want this character on my roster. Because I don't think the point is to start fresh on another server, do all the horizontal content again, just in exchange for having an easier honing time. That's not a good trade. So I assume the end goal is to transfer this character off this and onto your normal server. And the goal is just to keep new players coming into the game to keep this jumpstart server alive, since players will be exiting from it as well. Which if you can transfer a character, then that brings in another question. What can you bring with you? Earlier I mentioned that if players can come into the server, they could bring items that screw up the economy. Well, people could leave the server with a bunch of items that they bought for cheap on that economy and then flood it into the normal server auction house. And then in the same vein of talking about items, if we are shoving all characters, say 1415 to 1540 or 1580, whatever, if they're all located on the jumpstart server and then their economy is separate, I don't know how that's really going to affect the normal server economy, because we're going to have a lot less relics going in, but we're also going to have a lot less people needing those relics because all those people who are wanting to use them are going to be on the other server. If the item level cutoff of a jumpstart server is past 1540, then we also have to worry about ancient accessories being on that market and not on our server markets. So when it comes to items and accessories, that's kind of my concern with it. That's what my thought process of all that kind of stuff. Now, if you aren't able to transfer onto it, that leaves potential for a good amount of backlash from people who have characters who are like 14, 15 or like lower level characters that are under the limit on their characters on their roster. Maybe they're doing low ping, but they want to give them up, but they can't use the jumpstart server because they can't transfer it. So their option would have to be to make a new character or just deal with the normal server. So now on the topic of items and economy in that game, it is a separate one. Like I said, it's a separate auction house. So I think that actually could be pretty fun in its own way, because at the very start, at the very launch, we're going to be having people doing Argos with like 2x3s or even less. Bolton is going to be like 3x3, maybe 4x3s. I don't know about you guys, but I don't remember any of the damn signals or anything for Argos Gate 2. Like, it doesn't matter right now if you do an alt run of Argos on your current character on your current server. Players have so much sources of power that they still can just breeze through the content. I think if you're looking for a bit more fun, a little less efficiency, this could be a fun server and a good time to go with. Now, earlier I mentioned the logical goal is to get a character off of this and onto your normal roster, onto your played server that you play on. Because you really wouldn't make something called a jumpstart server just to have people stay on it forever. Unless they want to just change it to a seasonal server thing where it's a new server. But again, that's kind of a pain in the ass for horizontal progress. Now, something to think about is that they don't want people to gatekeep. So chances are cards aren't going to be carrying over your current roster progress. Whatever you have probably isn't going to be affected on the server. But on the same time, on the site, on the roadmap, they mentioned that cards is part of the things you get off the vendor. So obviously it'd be pointless to use the server, get cards, and have that progress, whatever cards you get on this server, on the jumpstart server, to be linked to only the jumpstart server. So the question is, are they going to make horizontal content linked between all things in that region and just stop separating that? But if they did that, they would still have gatekeeping on the jumpstart server because of cards. So a potential way they could be handling this is going to be have, say, all your East horizontal progress linked together. So any server on East, you have the same horizontal progress. You are able to apply everything that you do in the jumpstart server over to that one. So that means like a good thing about these servers would be doing a lot of dead islands. So for a lot of servers, Deathhold, for example, is not that populated. If you can do that and get that island soul on that server and then have that island soul apply to your main server, that would be great. That would be a very good use of jumpstart servers. That would keep people on jumpstart servers to just do a lot of horizontal content and keep those islands alive. But if these jumpstart servers do have access to all our roster stuff, that means they probably have to like limit the card sets. So maybe everybody just gets like a free LOS 12 or something like that, or 18. Because again, you can't let people have access to their cards. You can't let people have access to all their horizontal progress on their main server. Otherwise, you're just going to be gatekeeping in the jumpstart server again. At the start, there won't be any busing because everybody's gonna be starting off at the same item level. But with a jump server probably going to like 1540 at least, busing seems pretty inevitable. And the fact that everybody's on the same server means you don't even have to use the auction house to trade with other people. You can just straight up trade. But obviously with its own separate economy, the only way to get that gold off that server on your main roster is if they go by the design of, yes, once you get to a certain item level, you can transfer this character off the jumpstart server and onto your normal roster. Obviously the perks of the servers had to be pretty huge for people to just want to go to the server just to do busing, maybe a driver or a passenger. How relevant busing will be is really just dependent on how the design of the servers are and how characters go off it. If they go off it, they should go off it, so we'll see. Because again, I can't imagine many people would be willing to go back and do all the horizontal progression over and over on new servers just for a faster honing experience. And unless you can only transfer off the server without taking gold, there's going to be some sort of gold economy there for people to just try to siphon gold off it and transfer it out, which I guess the only way to stop busing on that server would to be so that if you do transfer off it, you can't take gold, you can't take items, probably just consumables and what's on your body. Now the rate you progress with this has to be pretty exponential, like it has to be huge, otherwise it doesn't warrant use. I still think that this could work out pretty well for newer players, people who are just getting into the game, to put it on a pack server and try to have them simulate the launch experience. But for veteran players, for people who have been playing a long time, there's a lot of people who might be able to use it, but they might choose not to. An established player with the community might be able to have people who can just run them through older raids. So you might have people who can run you through Walton, Vicus, Brel, Clown, and all that kind of stuff. Get it done quick. They might value doing easy, quick raids as opposed to just faster honing, dealing with pugs and potentially jail. So even though I'm hopeful yet skeptical about it, I do think that this is a step in the right direction. I am very happy that they are trying to address the situation. They are trying to address gatekeeping and overall the new player experience. This goes to show how much they listen to the West, as much as we like to plug our ears and think that they don't. I've said this many times before, and I'm going to say it again. New players are one of the most important things to keeping an MMO alive. I do not give a damn. I don't give a shit about the people who say, oh, well, since I had to experience this way, everybody who's coming in has to experience this way. That is a god-awful fucking boomer take. And like, I get it. You're probably worried that these newer players are going to infiltrate your raids because they don't have that much raid experience, but they have the item level. But if you're that worried about some random person joining your party and screwing it up and putting you in jail, you should be looking for a stack. You should be avoiding that at all costs. I've seen roster level 300 floor tanks. Like, it doesn't matter. If you don't have a static, you're going to get the sussy wussy. The way I think about all this is I want the game to succeed. I want the game to be alive. I want there to be no more Lost Ark is dead joke memes going on threads because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Something like this will not completely fix the game. It will not make all new players stay because there's still a lot going on. There's still a lot of systems they gotta get used to, a lot gotta learn, a lot of horizontal progress. I do hope that stuff does get easier for the newer player. Because again, 2 of my recent videos are me talking about how this game has too many system mechanics and hard reset would really help the player base. I don't think removing system mechanics or a hard reset is the only way to go around fixing these kind of things. I do think they can work around it in other ways. Something like this could help alleviate the vertical progression, yes, but people are gatekeeping over gems, cards, and just everything else that isn't item level 2. So when a fresh new player gets out of this jumpstart server and goes to a normal server, is he just going to get gatecapped because we have all these other systems? We'll have to see. Like I said, I am looking forward to this update. I am looking forward to hearing about it. I think this can be a fun experience for new and old players alike, but how it's managed, how it's handled is going to decide how long it lasts and how long it takes before it just becomes a normal server, basically, just with a, I'd assume, a level limit, an item level limit. Because again, I think the start off of having somebody with like a 3x3 doing vault and everybody doing that together would be pretty fun. The longer the server exists, the longer people are on it, the more established people are going to get. And as long as you can transfer characters with gold outside of it, there's going to be busing. So we'll have to see how they handle that, because that is probably one of the more important things. In that scenario, every character would probably be treated like a 7th character on your roster, where you get the free loot boxes. You just don't get gold off the raid. But you still need some gold to some degree in the game, because you got to buy things, you got to set up, you got to get your accessories, you got to get your 4x3s, you got to get your 5x3s. It's something that's been on my mind for the past few days now, that since we've gotten the announcement. Ultimately, I think this is a server you transfer out of. Veteran players wouldn't want to lose their mounts, their cosmetics, or horizontal progression, and you wouldn't want to keep all the new players on a separate ecosystem like matchmaking and party finder, or even just marketplace. And as a fun fact, next video I might have a different mic. I'm kind of getting sick of this one catching everything around me. But yeah, I'll see you guys then.